Thank you, everybody, for being here for this info session for the First Year Abroad Italy program. We are going to do a quick little overview and start with some introductions. Um, my name is Scott Ozorowski. I work in the Study Abroad office. I'm the associate director here, and I help kind of coordinate all the details of this program on the back end. Mike, go ahead.
And hello, folks. My name is Michael Tafel. I've been teaching history here for over 20 years, and I'm the program leader for this for the Legacy of Rome. I created the program, and this summer will be the fourth time we've run the program, and it's always been a huge success.
And we're also going to have a staff member from DePaul who's going to be the second co-leader of the program, and we're finalizing that name very soon. And so, but there will be a second person helping lead the program and helping teach part of the class as well. And for those of you doing the program, you will find out who that program person is in the coming weeks. So a little bit about this course, and then I'm going to have Mike talk a lot more about the course and the program. The way that these programs work, these are first year abroad programs. They are meant for first year students. So hopefully all of you here are first year students. We do have them open as well. You could be a first year freshman. You could be a first year transfer student. If you are a sophomore who has not taken your focal point seminar already, then you are also eligible to do the program. But if you are someone who is an upper class student, like a junior or senior, or someone who's already taken your focal point seminar, this is not a program you're able to do. But this program will give you credit for your focal point seminar class, which is a class that most first year students have to take either in winter quarter or spring quarter. If you are in a major that does not need to take that, it's okay. You can totally still do the program. We'll be able to have these credits count towards your experiential learning requirement, or it will just go towards open electives towards your degree progress. So that is totally fine. Honor students, because there are a few different majors that don't need to take the focal point seminar. Honor students also, if any of you happen to be an honor student, honor students don't have to take a focal point seminar, but honor students specifically will get honors credit for doing this. They will get honors 102 credit as well as experiential learning credit. So we have a ton of honor students who do these programs as well. The way that it works structurally is that you will take a class during the spring quarter. It's scheduled to be on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 2:40 to 4:10. So you will take that class all the way through the spring quarter. And then at the end of the class, everybody in the class and then your two leaders will then go abroad in June for about a week and a half, right at the end of the quarter, right at the end of finals week, to be able to do the study abroad component. So you've got the class, that's the required part on campus where you're learning about everything you need to know. And then you've got the overseas part for a week and a half. And that class is 3/4 of it is the academics, but then also you're going to have a handful of class sessions that are called Global Hour that are teaching you everything you need to do to prepare to successfully have the study abroad experience. It's kind of like Common Hour in the Discover and Explore classes, but it's all about how to prepare to go abroad for packing and studying multiculturalism and group dynamics and budgeting and everything that you need to be successful there. So all that is integrated into the class. You also get credit for an additional 2 credits of class called LSP 250. That is not a class you physically have to go to during the spring quarter. You're going to be registered in those 2 credits, but that's basically the credit you get for your time abroad. So while you're abroad, you're going to have a few assignments like reflection journal type of things, and then a final assignment that you'll turn in after you come back from the program in June, and you get 2 credits for that. So you'll see those 6 credits on your spring quarter, but it's the class and then the other 2 credits for your time abroad. You can't register for this class yourself. You will basically go through the application process, which we'll talk about. And then if you get accepted to the program and want to move forward, our study abroad office, I will get you registered into the class. But basically, just as you're looking at your spring quarter schedule, make sure you don't schedule yourself for anything Tuesdays, Thursdays, 2:40 to 4:10. So Mike, why don't you take it away and talk a little bit about the course, and then we'll move on to the actual aspects of the program.
All right. Sounds good. Well, pardon me here. I'm just moving a pop up on my screen. All right. Well, first off, folks, I'm really glad that there's a lot of excitement about this program. We have a lot of people that have already submitted their applications. And each time around I do this, we always have an extraordinary amount of people, and we only have 20 slots to fill. So I want to first start off by just reminding everybody that this is also a focal point class, that there's schoolwork involved here. And you've probably already seen the description here on the flyers around campus, but I do want to read just a few of the highlights for you once again. First off, it starts off by saying this program explores ancient Rome and its cultural legacy throughout history. Rome was not only the capital of this large empire that spanned 3 continents, it also became the capital of the Catholic Church, as well as the modern day nation of Italy. Even after the Roman Empire falls, the city's influence still continues to impact later generations. From the Holy Roman Empire that's created during the Middle Ages to the revolutionary era of Alexander Hamilton, Robespierre, Napoleon, Lafayette, and from the Florentine Republic of the Renaissance all the way into the Mussolini era of the 20th century, Rome's influence has persevered and still resonates with us today. The travel portion of the course will bring you in direct contact with modern and ancient Rome, as well as the Renaissance city of Florence, a place where the culture of ancient Rome was reborn in the 1400s and beyond. Since this is a focal point class, we bring in different disciplines. So we'll get a lot of history through this class. That should be self-evident. But we're also going to dabble into political science, talk a little bit about philosophy, as well as, even though it's not listed, you're going to get also a big share of art history in this class as well. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what we're actually going to be doing here. First off, we have the 10-week course in Chicago. It's a very serious class. We expect great attendance, perfect attendance. There's schoolwork that's going to be done. But then we have the week off for finals week. And then on Monday, we all meet at the airport, Monday, June 15th, and that's the day that we fly to Rome. It's a direct flight, which is always nice. We'll arrive there hopefully somewhat early in the morning. Then from June 16th, to June 20th, which is 5 days, we have 5 days in Rome. We have a lot of activities planned. Then on June 21st, I believe that's a Sunday morning, real early in the morning, we take a train, a bullet train to Florence, Italy. It's only about an hour and a half when all goes well. Once we arrive in Florence, we get checked into our hostel there, and then we have a whole slew of activities in Florence for the next 5 days. Early in the morning on Friday, June 26th, we have the return flight back to Chicago, which I also believe is a direct flight. So that's the general itinerary. It's 11 days-ish, but 10 nights, and it goes by really, really quick because it's action-packed. All right, the next slide. Before we get into some of the activities that we're going to do overseas, folks, I just want you to look at this picture here. Once again, this is a picture from the flyer, but really zero in on it for a minute, because there's a lot of stuff going on in this picture here. You'd almost might think it was AI generated or something like that, that it's some fictitious place. But this is one of what I call the money shots in downtown ancient Rome, or downtown Rome today. As you can see, there's columns. If you got a good eye for architecture, there's the Colosseums in the background. There's churches mixed in. There's a lot of ruins and rubble, but it also looks like things are higher than other things. For example, if you look at where this church is on the left, you'll see it's surrounded by Roman columns, but then there's a long, long staircase before you get to the ground floor where people are walking around there. And one of the themes in our class is going to be the many layers of history in Rome. And this picture kind of personifies that idea very well. You have all the ancient stuff that was built 2,000 years ago. And then even once that civilization falls and crumbles, life goes on. So some of those buildings are repurposed. As you can see on the left there, that's an old Roman temple that has a 15th century church built into it. But as life goes on, 2,000 years is a long time. And they didn't always have the kind of the maintenance and the infrastructure to keep the city up. So the ground level rose, just garbage, the river flooding, them not being able to drain things. So you'll notice often when you're in Rome, when you're looking at the ancient ruins, lots of times you're looking down at them. Like the modern cities, like 20 feet up. But nevertheless, you see a lot of different elements. We got elements here from ancient Rome. We got churches that were built in medieval times in the 1300s. But then you also have churches that are a little bit newer that are built like this one here in the 16 into the 1700s. But this picture really personifies one of the themes of the class, which you're hearing a lot about, which is the many, many layers of history in a place like Rome. There'll even be times where we'll go into a particular church, and the church will be beautiful and all that stuff, and it'll be built in the 1300s. But then we'll go down a special tour, we'll go down a long staircase, and all of a sudden we'll be in a church that was built in the 400s or 500s. And then we'll go down another staircase, and all of a sudden we're like 50 feet underground, and we're in an old Roman house that has old statues and tiny little shrines to the old Roman gods. So we're actually going to see this close up, not only when we come look at the Roman Forum here in the Colosseum, but we'll be seeing this in our day-to-day life in Rome. Okay, next slide. All right, so if you're not already familiar, folks, you'll see this map a lot if you end up taking the class. This is a map of the Roman Empire at its absolute height. Let's just say roughly about 2,000 years ago, okay? So if you notice, if you got a sense for geography, it spans, 3 different continents or over 3 different continents. Huge chunk of Europe, almost the entire British island. But then if you notice, we go kind of more and more, you got Italy there right in the center. That's kind of the heartland of Rome. But then as we migrate more and more to the east, you see some of these modern day countries like modern day Turkey, Armenia, Iraq, Syria. You go further down, you got Libya, you got Egypt, you got Morocco, and Spain. So there's a lot of countries, a lot of places, I should say, that were impacted by Rome. And Rome ruled over all this land for about 600 years. So you can go to places like Spain, North Africa, Syria, and there's plenty of Roman ruins left behind. And even once Roman civilization crumbled, for lack of better terms, new civilizations emerged in those same places. And those people still had to interact with a lot of the old Roman infrastructure, with Roman culture. The people that they conquered were speaking Latin and had Roman customs. So often that culture of Rome is going to impact the later countries that kind of inherit this land that we see here. But you'll see this map a lot if you take the class. We'll go to the next. All right. So what you're looking at right here is something that you'll also see a lot if you take my class. And this is an actual model. It took 42 years to create this model. It was a big project in Italy over the 20th century. Now you could probably do it all with like a 3D printer and maybe some AI. You could maybe do it in a lot less than 42 years. But it spans, picture like two big DePaul classrooms that hold about 40 people, like the ones you'd see in SAC or some of those big ones we have in the Arts and Letters building. Picture about 2 of those classrooms. That's how big this model is. But the reason I love showing it is it really gives us, the kind of 21st century students here, a semblance of what this ancient city would have looked like. Now, this wasn't just whimsically slapped together. This was, archaeologists that spent, like I said, decades trying to recreate the old ancient city exactly how it was. And what I love about it is it gives you a sense of how densely packed it was, but also a lot of the infrastructure and how sophisticated this ancient city was. I mean, for 2,000 years ago, there wasn't many places on the planet like this. Plus, there was only about 200 million people on the planet estimated. So Rome itself, to have a city that had over 1 million people, was really, really remarkable. But what I like is it kind of gives us the imagination if we could fly a drone over ancient Rome and take pictures of it. Or maybe if we were landing in our plane, if you ever take a plane ride and you look out and you see the whole city of Chicago in one glimpse. That's kind of what this gives us here. But this map, I've gone to Rome over 15 times, and this model here does a really, really good job mirroring exactly where the old ruins are. As you can see, you probably already recognize the Colosseum, the Circus Maximus. There's theaters mixed in, large public buildings, temples, and shrines. It's really extraordinary. Thanks. All right, so our class, folks, our 10-week class, which I always have to remind everybody that there is a class involved with this. I know I get a lot of folks that are just like, why do you want to take the class? Well, I just really love Italy. I want to go there and eat the food. Well, there is learning involved in this process as well. In the first 5 weeks, we're going to go over a general history of the Roman world. It's 1,000 years and about 4.5 weeks of class. We need that to understand the legacy of Rome. You need to actually understand Rome. And then once we get to week 6, about halfway through the class, that's when we start getting to the legacy aspect of things. We'll talk about the legacy of Rome and how the Catholic Church carries that on. We'll talk about Rome's legacy in medieval Europe and the tiny little kingdoms that are brought about by the Germanic invasions. We'll talk a little bit about the Roman legacy in the Islamic world. But then once we get to week 8, and I spend a little bit more time on this than I do when I teach this focal point when it's not a study abroad, is because we're going to the city of Florence. And we're going to spend a lot of time on the Italian Renaissance, which kind of has its origins in the 1300s. And many of you, when you think of the Italian Renaissance, you may have heard of it before. You might just think it's a time of great art and folks like Michelangelo or Leonardo da Vinci or some of those very famous artists from this era. There's a lot more to it than that. During the Renaissance era, you have a lot of folks, especially in Italy, that start to really realize that technologically their civilization has gone backwards. That they're looking around and they see some of these reminders and relics that ancient Rome left behind and saying, well, these people were culturally and technologically superior to us. But they were humans, so they could pull this off. Why can't we pull this off? So there's a real push, both artistically, in architecture, as well as in literature and politics, to try to mimic and recreate what the Romans had done. So, in some ways, in order to try to move forward, these people felt that they had to look backwards. And once we get to about week 9, with only 2 weeks left, we're going to get into the legacy of Rome during the Revolutionary era. The Revolutionary era is kind of a generic term for the revolutions that take place in, say, America, Latin America, like the revolutions in Haiti, the revolutions in France, the French Revolution, the American Revolution, and then if you know, a lot of the Latin American countries have their revolutions: 1810 in Argentina, 1821 in Mexico, 1819 Venezuela, et cetera, et cetera. How Rome and the culture of Rome is going to impact that era. And then once we get to week 10, we'll talk just a little bit about, we got a global hour session, really getting prepared for leaving, but we are going to talk a little bit about the legacy of Rome in modern and late 19th and 20th century Italy, because that's going to also be a lot of the sites that you're going to be seeing in your casual everyday walks are buildings that were built in the, 18, 1900s, 2000s, and how Rome still impacts modern Italy today. All right, so some of the highlights. Well, Rome is always a blur. We got a lot of stuff to do, but I do have the program created, so there are some small periods, some solid periods of free time for the folks as well. But when we arrive, you never know if the plane's going to be delayed or whatnot. So the first day is really just about getting settled into our lodgings. And once everybody gets settled in, I take everybody on a nice couple-hour walk of Rome and give everybody the rest of the day off to just kind of get settled in. That day, we have a real serious curfew on that day there just to get everybody some solid sleep. But our first full day in Rome, we go down to the Colosseum. We have a guided tour. We see the Roman Forum. And the Roman Forum is, once again, this picture that you see on the screen here. It's kind of the old city center of ancient Rome. Now modern Rome is all around it, and that is kind of like a large archaeological park. It's just truly fascinating. We have a nice dinner set up that first day. And then the second day, we wake up early. We got a breakfast in the morning, and then we go to the Vatican. Can't go to Rome without going to Vatican City. So technically, we are going to a second country. We see the Vatican museums, and then we get a chance to see St. Peter's Basilica. After we do that, I finally give the students a nice evening off. And then the next day we wake up and we got a tour of some old Roman churches. And these churches we're seeing are not just ordinary ones. These are the ones that I mentioned before that have the many layers of history, where we're going to walk down deep into the cellars, underground, 50 feet at times, to see some of these old Roman ruins that are still lurking beneath some of these old, more modern buildings. And then one of our great excursions is going to be to a old ancient Roman town called Ostia Antica. And I'll talk about that in the upcoming slides. Go next. Okay, so St. Peter's in the Vatican, if you don't already know what that is, the Vatican City is a tiny independent country. It's the capital of the Catholic Church. They have, world famous museums, perhaps the most famous museum in the world. The monument itself is just over the top, Baroque splendor. It's an extraordinary building. We'll get a chance to go in there. Next, Ostia Antica. So on our last day in Rome, we get on transportation. It takes us about an hour to get there, but you've all probably heard of the city of Pompeii in Italy. Pompeii is the famous city where the earthquake, Mount Vesuvius, went off in the 70s or whatever the year was, 69, 70 of the Common Era AD. And the city's it's really well preserved. It's a great archaeological site. There's tons of documentaries on it. Well, we don't have time to go all the way down there because it's by Naples. However, one of Rome's best kept secrets is not too far away, is the Roman port town of Ostia Antica. Now, when a volcano did not cover up this town, it actually got submerged in water, only to be kind of re-resurrected over the last 300 years. But it too has that Pompeii feel, where you're walking through and there's old Roman buildings that you can walk into, mosaics, that there's still paintings on the walls in some of these places. So it really gives us a sense of a place that's untouched by the modern world and a glimpse into just daily life of ancient Rome. We have a guided tour of this place, and what's amazing about it is normally we have the whole thing to ourselves because it's a big place and a lot of people don't make the journey out there. After we go see Ostia Antica, we're only 2 train stops away from the beach. So I encourage everybody afterwards to go to the beach for a couple hours and enjoy the Mediterranean Sea. All right, well, one of my favorite things about Rome is its large piazzas. And a piazza kind of translate as a park or a plaza. We get a few of them in Chicago here, but piazzas are all over the place in Italy, and they're large public spaces. Usually, traffic, cars aren't allowed unless it's maybe like a special taxi or a limo or something. But nevertheless, Rome has some of the most extraordinary ones. And this one here, the Piazza Navona, is one of my absolute favorite. As you can see, and just from the picture alone, it's a wide, deep space. The reason it's shaped like this large oval is it was built on top of an old Roman racetrack. Once again, the legacy of Rome. But it's got fountains. It's just such a beautiful place. I always love when I get to take my students there for the first time. It's usually on day 2 as we're going out to our first dinner together. But it's truly an extraordinary public space. I could just spend hours and hours and hours there. The same thing goes, I'll give you one more example of the Campo dei Fiori. Whoops. The Campo dei Fiori, as you can see, is kind of another one of those large spaces. Rome has about 5 of them. Rome has a ton of piazzas, little areas with a couple cafes, but these grand ones. And when you're there in the evenings, you can just feel all the human energy. It's really remarkable. But this one here is a large public space, as you can see. And as you can see, it's just tons of restaurants and cafes and bars surrounding the whole central area there. So it's definitely an evening destination spot. All right, folks, I could sit here and talk everybody's ear off for the next 3 hours about Rome, but hopefully you'll get that in the future. The next town we're going to visit is Florence. Now, Florence is definitely a change of pace because Rome is a big city. I think it's almost up to about 3 million people, like Chicago. I mean, it's a big, bustling place. Get a little overwhelming at times. Can't see it all in 5 days. But what I really like is when we make the transition to Florence, because Florence is like a big, small town. And as you can see from the image here, this is one of the money shots, for lack of better terms. But the skyline of Florence hasn't changed over the last 500 years. It still looks exactly the same as it would when the Medici or Da Vinci or somebody was standing on the same hill looking out over it. But once we get to Florence, we can kind of take a deep breath. We don't have to take much public transportation. Everything is walkable. And it's really a whole different vibe there. Continue. So just some of our highlights in our time in Florence. Well, first off, we're staying at a nice kind of hostel in the city center. It's about a 10-15 minute walk to everything. We're going to have guided walks of the city. We got a solid guided walk by a Florentine expert, multiple museum trips. Now, what I try to do is to not over museum everybody. I mean, Florence is a place where travelers go there and they just get caught up in museum fever. I mean, they're just, you could spend hours and hours and hours. We have limited time. So we're doing kind of strategic museums here. The Bargello, you do it in about 45 minutes to an hour. We got to see Michelangelo's famous David statue. We're going to see the Medici chapels. We'll see the Santa Croce Church, which is also a museum. But the big one there, the Uffizi Gallery, you'll have free time if you want to visit that on your own, but that's Florence's main museum, but I've strategically left that out just due to time constraints. But we're going to visit a handful of Florence's famous churches, just like we'll visit some churches in Rome. Churches in Rome, Italy, they're like free museums. They always are chock filled with artwork, and often they're open to the public. But one interesting thing we do, and this seems to be a fan favorite of my previous groups, is we take a nice little trip. We get a private bus. We take a nice little trip to the hilltop Tuscan village of Fiesole. That's a nice day. We have a nice lunch up in the hills. It gets us really kind of a glimpse of kind of the mountains and the hills around Florence, because Florence is the capital of Tuscany. Tuscany is famous, real famous region of Italy, also very famous for its wine and things like that. And when we're in Fiesole, we're not going to see many Roman ruins. in Florence. Even though Florence was originally a Roman town, you don't see any Roman ruins. But when we go up to this small little settlement, this tiny little town, they do have an old Roman theater there that's still in use and a few old Roman ruins left behind. We're also going to utilize, a very good friend of mine owns a school right in the heart of Florence, in an old Renaissance palazzo. It's called the Mona Lisa School. We're going to go there and get a couple quick Italian lessons, and we're going to have a couple guest lectures there. We're also going to have a small little art activity at one of the local art schools. I mean, we're in Florence. We got to try to do something artistic together. We'll have a little art activity too. Right. Okay, just a couple pictures of Florence if you're not too familiar here, folks. This gigantic church, it's called the Duomo. And if you can see from this picture, this is just a solid Florentine street leading up to this church. The church is extraordinarily large. For the longest time, for 500 years, it was the largest dome in the world. Only until like the 1800s, when they started counting, like, or late 19th, early 20th century, they started counting like domed stadiums. Were able to beat it in terms of size. But the people of Florence, the people of Tuscany used to joke back in the day that the Florentines were so crazy that they built a mountain right in the middle of their city. And that's what it feels like. I mean, it just dominates the city, how big this church is. All right, the Bargello Museum. What's cool about Florence is a lot of these buildings we go into, it might be a museum, but the building itself is also has its history. On the right here, this thing that looks kind of like a type of castle-like building, that was the original government building slash, fortress that used to protect Florence. It was used as a prison. And now over the last 150 years, it was converted into an art museum. Total beautiful, beautiful building to go into. It also houses the famous Donatello's David, not Michelangelo's. Donatello's David is its most famous piece. All right, next slide. All right, the Medici chapels. We go there to see some Michelangelo architecture there. It's kind of a quick trip, but it's really, really a beautiful, beautiful work of art, this entire building. This picture doesn't quite do it much justice. Next slide. All right. Well, Florence has its share of outdoor spaces as well. Remember, it's much smaller than Rome, but this here is like the main public square. And that building on the left there, it's not the Bargello you just saw. This is the one that replaces that in the 1400s. It's called the Palazzo Vecchio. But one thing I really love about Florence is there's so much public art. If you look to the right of the Palazzo Vecchio, you'll see kind of what's called a loggia with those arches there. And you'll notice there's statues underneath there. That's public art that's been on display for almost 400 years. A couple of those statues have been replaced because they're so famous. They don't want them out in the elements anymore. But a lot of the statues, you have ancient Roman statues under there. You have Cellini's famous Perseus and Medusa is under there. It's really an extraordinary place because it was meant to be able to showcase artwork to wherever, what income level somebody was, they could still, come to Florence and appreciate art, even if they couldn't afford the museums. And that's kind of a tradition the city has had for the last 300 years. But this is one of my favorite outdoor areas here, folks. Next slide. All right, and as I mentioned before, Fiesole, it's got some old Roman ruins there, as you can see, beautiful views in the distance of, Tuscan vineyards and the hills of Tuscany, but still very, very close to Florence. That's the old Roman theater. Next slide. And then once again, the Duomo, the building you'll never stop talking about once you go there, just this big, big, massive church right in the center of Florence. It also makes it very easy to not get lost in Florence because you figure out where your hotel is in relation to this building, and then almost everywhere you go, you can get a glimpse of it. So it really makes it easy to navigate the city. Next slide. All right, folks, while in Italy, just a couple quick announcements. I'm almost done here. Keep this in mind. Once again, you'll hear me say this at the interviews as well. I want to make sure everybody is having the experience that they want to have. But this is a class that has an agenda, things that we have to go do. So some people, they just want to sign up for one of these programs just to go to the place. Well, you could probably just go on a 2-week vacation for a little bit cheaper than what you'd be causing here. But we have events that need to be done. And these events are almost every day and take about 5 to 6 hours on average. Few of the days, they might be 8 or 9 hours. Most of the time we're waking up, you're waking up at 7:15-ish if you want to sleep a couple extra minutes, but most of our events start between 8:30 and 10 every day. There will be I try to keep this very minimal, but I do have a couple little readings mixed in. Usually it's like a 3-page PDF or something like that, an old writing from the time that we'll discuss. There is a few classroom sessions. In Rome, we'll have twice where we get together in a classroom and we talk about things. In Florence, we'll have it twice as well. I think 3 times in Florence at the Mona Lisa School. You're going to have free time to explore, but keep in mind that there is an agenda. We expect everybody to attend all the events. That's just the way it goes. So there is free time. I need my free time too. But first couple of days, like I said, the first day in Rome is just kind of easing in. Then we have 2 big days with an evening off. Then we have another event that dominates the next couple of days. But you'll have things like evening off, afternoon off, things like that. Sometimes we have an event in the morning, and I say, all right, everybody, you got 2 hours. We'll meet back here at this location and then continue our day together. But expect that there are events that need to be attended. All right, folks, plan on a lot of walking. Okay. That goes without saying. You're going to hear me say it at the interviews. I'm saying it now. I will say it almost every week at class. Plan on a lot of walking. Most people average 15 to 20,000 steps a day. Also, Italy is hit or miss in June. When I first did this program, every single day it was 95 and up. Every single day. So now picture a lot of walking with a lot of heat. Most people, I don't love the heat, but I'm just so excited to be there. And it's just part of Italy in the summertime. Sure, the places we sleep at night have air conditioning and things like that. Nevertheless, plan that it could be pretty hot. Now, we got lucky last time because we had a lot of good time. We had some 70-degree days and some 80-degree days. But the key is to make sure that mentally you're prepared for this. Anyway, folks, overall, I've done this 3 times, and universally, it's been hailed as a great experience. So I'm really excited about a lot of the excitement that we have here. I think we have, almost over 50 people that have shown interest so far. So I appreciate you being here. And at this stage of the game, I'm going to hand it back over to Scott, and then we're going to take any questions that you may have.
All right. And like Mike said, they're busy days, but it's busy because we're packing it with amazing stuff. Like it's going to be incredible experiences that would be too hard for you to coordinate on your own in a lot of ways. So it's full, but full with great experiences. And you can clearly see from Mike, he's got amazing passion for Italy and for these sites. So you're going to learn so much while you're there. Last couple things before we take any questions. The application deadline is coming up in just 2 weeks, February 1st. Some of you on this call have already applied. Great. Some of you have started the application but haven't actually finished it and submitted it yet. Some of you have not even opened an application yet. So please go to the For Sure About Italy program page, get that application started, complete it as soon as possible. Please don't wait all the way until February 1st. Get that in as soon as you can. It's a pretty straightforward, just a handful of short answer questions that you have to do. And then Mike and the staff professional are going to be doing some brief group interviews. This is not like a high pressure interview where you have to wear a tie. It is like getting together little groups of 4 or 5 students for a half an hour to just chat a little bit and get to know you a little bit. As he said, we can only accept 20 students, and there usually are more than 20 that complete their applications. And so it is a competitive process. So spend some time in your application. You'll do the group interviews, and then we'll let you know if you're accepted or not. We do have special scholarship funding for these programs. You don't have to do anything special to get a scholarship. You just need to apply to the program by February 1st. We will then review everybody. We look at your GPA and then your FAFSA through the financial aid office. And we do as much as we can to try to give scholarship funding to students that have high financial need and strong grades. The lowest scholarship is $1,000. The highest scholarship can go up to almost the entire cost of the program. There is no commitment to doing the program when you get accepted. So I always say to students, if you're not sure if you can afford it or if you're on the fence, apply to the program, see if you get accepted, see what kind of scholarship funding you get. If you decide that you can't do it, you just say, no, thank you. And that's that. But every year we have students who almost didn't apply because they thought they couldn't afford it. And then they get a scholarship and then they can do it. We will let everyone know in mid to late February if you've been accepted to the program or if you're on the wait list, and if you got a scholarship, how much that will be. And then we give you a couple of weeks to decide. So once you hear you're accepted, we give you about a week and a half to 2 weeks to let us know what your decision is. And if you tell us, yes, we want to move forward, then we'll get you registered in the classwork and tell you all the other information that you need to know. The cost of the program is a little over 4,000, 4275, but it includes almost everything. It's your round trip airfare, it's your accommodations, it is most of your most of your meals, all your breakfasts, and about half your lunches, and half your dinners, all the activities, all the transportation. You'll also have international travel insurance. It's really just personal spending money for your free time, and a handful of your meals are really the only costs on top of this. And again, those scholarships can range from $1,000 up to almost the full cost of the program, depending on your financial situation. And yeah, and if you have any questions about the application process or the program in general, you can always contact me. You can contact Michael if you have any questions specifically about the course and what you'll be doing there. Our emails are there. But yeah, we'll kind of take questions though now from everybody. If you have any questions, feel free to just unmute yourself and ask or throw something in the chat, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Hi, I'm a sophomore, but I haven't taken that focal point seminar, so I just want to make
Yep,
sure I'm
you're
eligible.
good. Yep, if you're a sophomore who has not taken focal point and still need it, totally eligible.
Okay, and then I was just wondering about the group interviews. Do you guys know when does that happen? Is that before we get our decisions, I'm assuming?
Yeah, they're going to be in touch sort of like end of in the next week or two. They'll probably start doing the first interviews maybe the last week of January and then into that first week or two of February. And you'll get an email once you've submitted your application. And it'll basically have a little sign up sheet where there's going to be little time slots where everybody can sign up for the time that works for them.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Other questions? No other questions.
Do applications like prioritize people who have submitted like their applications like in the beginning, like when it first opened?
We don't. It's great if you can get it in sooner just so we
Mhm.
see, but the deadline is February 1st and we'll consider everybody equally depending on no matter when they submitted it, once they all come in. We may start some of the interviews before February 1st because a bunch of people have already submitted their application,
Yeah.
but everybody will absolutely be considered the same way.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah, Brianna.
Do you guys work with, because I'm a stay-at-home mom and my husband works a lot and we don't really have help with the kids. So, do you guys work with students who's not able to do in person or it's mandatory in person?
Yeah, with the class, it is an in-person class. So this is not a hybrid class. It's in
Hmm.
person. There's also a lot of like interaction between the people physically in the class as you're getting to know each other and doing some group activities and such. So unfortunately, there are a lot of hybrid classes at DePaul, but very few of the study abroad classes are that way because so much of it is about getting to know each other in person as you're kind of doing stuff before you go. So this is one where you do have to be in person.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? All right. Well, like I said, if you haven't gotten your application in yet, please do that as soon as possible. If anyone else does have any specific questions, we'll stick around too. But thank you for being here. Excited that you're looking forward to it. And yeah, good luck with everything. Have a good weekend, and we'll stick around if you have any other questions. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, folks. I appreciate you coming out. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Take care.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Yeah, absolutely.